Welcome back, everybody. Here is my kiln. Kind of a dumpy little thing, but it works. This is what the inside looks like, and you can see here are my art pieces. They are no longer wet. They're very, very dry. Okay, if you have water in them and you fire them, what happens is the water gets hot. That's inside of the clay if it's still wet. And hot water turns to steam. Steam has to get out of those somehow, and so how they get out is they explode. So that's why you have to let it dry out totally. There's different ways that you can, there's different ways two types of kilns. Mine is a manual kiln, and I'll show you how to set that up in a second. But there's also, what we have at the school is we have what's called an electronic kiln. And it has a little computer in it, and you set the computer and you tell it how long to fire, and it does everything for you. It's kind of like set it and forget it, just like that rotisserie thing, if you remember that commercial. You could also put what's called a pyrometer, which is basically a thermometer, into a kiln and watch the pyrometer. And when it hits certain temperatures, you have to do certain things to finish firing. That way is probably the biggest pain. My way, you have to use something called a pyrometric cone. It's this little thing here. And what this does is I put it down here. This little thing lifts up, but I'm not going to put it in there yet. What happens is there's this little switch right here, and when I put the pyrometric cone in, it lifts this little thing here. And what happens is the cone melts when it hits a certain temperature, and when it melts, it bends, and when it bends, that little lever falls, and it turns the kiln off. How cool is that? Now, the other thing I have to do is this does have temperatures, high, medium, and low, so every couple hours I have to come out here, and I have to turn the kiln up, and it takes usually about 4 hours for me to fire something like this. The more you have in it, the longer it takes. And so we're going to set it up, and I'll see you when we open it. Hopefully nothing explodes. Hi everybody, it's me again, and I have fired my pottery. This is my kiln down here. Hello! It's a little tiny kiln, which is fine because I'm little and tiny. Now, I don't do a whole lot of firing, so I don't need a big one. The one at school is a little bit bigger, and they make even bigger ones than the one we have at school. They even make some that you can walk into. So I fired my pieces that I made, and we're going to open it up and see if they survived. Sometimes, if there's still water left in the clay, because the kiln gets hot, the water inside of the pottery will get hot also. And what happens to water when it gets hot? It creates steam, and then the steam has to escape out of the pottery, and to do that, it blows up. It explodes the pottery sometimes. So let's see what happened. Now, usually you can just tip the lid on a kiln. Mine's broken. So I'm going to take the lid off, and we'll see how it worked out. Let me bring the camera closer so we all can take a look together. Fingers crossed. Usually it doesn't happen, having a problem with your pottery, as long as you let it dry out completely. Okay, let's see what we got here. Oh, they look good. Here's one. Remember I said I made 3. Here's the second one. And the third one. And they're really, really hard, like rocks now. Now, the next step is I am going to glaze these. But I'm going to use a special glaze called a raku glaze, because we're going to be doing a raku firing. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when I start glazing. Okay, so I'll be right back.